What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with another Detroit Lions free agent video. I'm sorry, I've been messing up this intro many times. I think it's been a minute since I've done a pre-recorded video. It's been a few days, all right? We've been doing these live streams. I forgot how to say my intro. Today, we're taking a look at a free agent profile for a receiver, one of the biggest names receiver that could hit free agency this offseason. We have a week from today for negotiations to start with teams around the league and free agents. And then 2 days later, signings will become official. So today we're taking a look at another free agent profile that has a rumor tied to the Detroit Lions. So let's get it started.
The city's been down and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. And it's good to be back with another free agent video. I'm excited to do this one for the last, really since yesterday. After you guys told me about this rumor and this rumor was sent to me, I immediately dove into the film. And I was already watching him a little bit, but not to the point where I could do a video on him. I dove into the film. I was up really late into very early morning hours yesterday. And then today, as soon as I got up, put the film on, picked up right where I left off. I've watched multiple games of this player, and I feel really good about where I'm at because it took a little while. He had to grow on me a little bit, and he did grow on me because I felt like early in the film process, I was like, okay, I feel like this is what he's good at, this is what he's not good at. But as you continue to watch him, you start to see the fine details and why he is so highly valued around the NFL, it seems. Hey, we are talking about a free agent receiver who could hit free agency this offseason from the Chicago Bears. He's coming off of one of his worst statistical seasons, if not his worst statistical season of his career. This is Allen Robinson. Now, I got to give a shout out to my man, Phantom Lion on Twitter. He's been sending me these updates for a very long time. All right, he tags me in these rumors, and I love it. I really appreciate it because sometimes I'll get locked down and looking at something else, especially now with the combine, and I miss other things. I've seen the Wan'Dale Robinson, rumors as well, so we'll have to talk about that. But shout out to my man, Phantom Lion, for this one. This is coming from NFL Rumors on Twitter. You've probably heard of them before. They got a lot of followers. They've predicted some things right in the past. So, I take this as it is. It is just a rumor. Who knows if it's true? All right. But this definitely could be a player that the Lions could target this offseason the more and more I watch the film, especially when recently we've been getting reports that the Detroit Lions are going to be in the market for a big-name receiver this offseason. Really no names tied to that specifically, but you tie that rumor with this NFL Rumors rumor, and all of a sudden you're like, oh snap, this is a very legitimate possibility for the Lions this offseason. You look at our receiver room, the Lions have clearly made it known that they want outside receiver help, someone that can consistently win one-on-one. They want to sign at least one receiver, which makes you feel like it's probably not someone that was here last year just based on the phrasing of that, and also draft maybe 2 receivers according to Antoine Randall L. So today we're talking about the receiver from Chicago, Allen Robinson II, the guy that was from Detroit, Michigan. A 6'2", 220-pound receiver who, as I said, he is coming off of one of his worst statistical seasons. You can see it for 2021 here. He played in 12 games where he had 38 receptions on 66 targets for only 410 yards, a touchdown, and 2 drops. Now, if those were his stat lines every year, I'd be concerned. However, that's not the case. Just go back to 2020. This guy looked like he was going to be one of the top free agents to hit the market, yet he got franchise tag brought back by Chicago. However, this past year, we saw his role really diminish. The amount of targets that he was getting was seemingly cut in half. Chicago was kind of a mess last year. They brought in some outside receivers with some speed, so they played him a little bit more in the slot than they have in the past. He became more of a big slot receiver for them. But I don't even think it was just that. I think it was also part of the fact that their offense, and specifically the pass game, was kind of a mess all season. They had some okay games, but for the most part, it was pretty tough to watch. And it started off with really porous offensive line play. We saw the Justin Fields 10-sack game, I believe it was, against the Cleveland Browns. That was hard to watch. The quarterback, going back and forth. Obviously, their head coach is now out of there, and for a long time, they've been blaming him for their offensive struggles. I think a lot of that led to the production that he had last season. Now that's not to say he was perfect last year, because he wasn't. He still left some plays out there. But yeah, it was pretty bad around him. However, in 2020, the statistics were incredible. 102 receptions on 151 targets, also 1,250 yards and 6 touchdowns and only 3 drops. That's actually incredible. That's according to Pro Football Reference. Now, I don't know what they say is a drop, because I've seen a lot of passes where guys will like have it and then the guy will knock it out, and then it's like, okay, that's not a drop. I'm assuming they're calling that just a pass breakup, so I want to make that clear. But still, that season was outstanding. And I've watched a lot of 2020 film because it was such a good year for him. Oh my goodness. it was fun to watch the more and more you dive into it. Some of those games, it's just like he took over. It was like, just get out of my way. You simply can't cover me one-on-one. Red zone, they double him, open up someone else. There was a few games like that, and of course, 2019, another great season. He played in 16 games again. Started 15 that year, 98 receptions for 154 targets, 1,147 yards, 7 touchdowns. He did have 7 drops, so that's a little bit more according to Pro Football Reference. He also goes back to Jacksonville, where he had a fantastic season in 2015, I believe 2015, where he had like 1,400 receiving yards. It's a former second-round pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is 28 years old, so he is not necessarily on the young side anymore. You know, that's for sure. This would be his third team if he ended up going elsewhere. And it's projected by Pro Football Focus that he lands a 3-year, $45 million deal. You can see this past season he had a hamstring injury, which some people thought that, you know, he was kind of taking it, you know, just very cautious because he knew that his future wasn't necessarily with the Chicago Bears after playing on a franchise tag. So he just wanted to take care of his body, knowing that he was going to get a payday elsewhere in this offseason. It was just a hammy, but he was out to end the season. So that's what a lot of people believe went down with Allen Robinson this past year. And then you could also see he had a torn ACL back in 2017. So yeah, this past year was rough. He was no longer really the number one target there. Their number one target was Darnell Mooney, who was really good. I mean, he was a really nice deep threat for him, but it was just so much ugliness with their offense, specifically in that passing game. It's why they made the changes that they've made this offseason to fix that and hopefully fix that. Get some new coaches in there because they need it. For 2021, his statistics were really, really good. And what's so impressive is everybody says it at this point. It's just like, hey, he had Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, up until this past year where he had some Justin Fields as well. What happens if he gets in a really good offensive system? Like, what could his numbers be? Because they could be absolutely incredible, you have to believe, with some of the quarterback play. And, you know, sometimes you hear that and you're like, okay, it's just people saying that. But when you watch some of these games, it's clear, not only were they missing him at times, easy passes they'd miss, a lot of timing issues. He runs a lot of timing routes. They would throw it late, very late on like slant routes, things like that. A lot of defenders getting to play would have not an opportunity to really make a play on the football. They put him in some bad spots. He's made some amazing body control catches, but at the same time, he has not been perfect either. So there's that to throw out there. Before we get into Allen Robinson and his play and we break it down, I first want to talk about just this situation a little bit and why this could make sense for the Lions. So Lions have some more cap space this offseason. They said they're going to leave that open to spend some money on some free agents. They've talked so much about wanting that guy on the outside that can consistently win one-on-one. They want a red zone target. They want someone that can help them open up in the red zone. Either that's opening someone else up or making plays on their own. The Lions really didn't have that last year. They had Hockenson, who was their main red zone guy until he wasn't there. And then they didn't really have many options in the red zone, right? It was a struggle to try to figure out who is this guy for us in the red zone. It started to become basically Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the guy is definitely not on the taller side. A lot of it was just trying to get open in small little areas and making plays that way. But having a guy like this definitely could help you in that area in the red zone. However, if you go back to when Brad Holmes was with the LA Rams, we saw in that first season with Sean McVay, they went out and they signed a couple of free agents. And we've compared the Lions offseason this season to what the Rams did that year. And I compare a lot of it there because I think we can see a lot of similarities. That offseason, the LA Rams didn't make a lot of huge moves because it wasn't normal with the LA Rams to go sign tons of big multi-year deals to different free agents unless they were re-signings, but they did make 2 significant signings outside of house. First one being, of course, Andrew Whitworth, who was their left tackle, and he was through the Super Bowl. That worked out really well. He's on the older side, but it worked out well. He's like 35 years old when they gave him a 3-year deal because they needed tackle help, so they immediately filled that gap. And then also they went out and they signed Robert Woods, a guy without tons of production, but he was still on the younger side. I believe he's 24, 25 years old when they made that move. So much younger, of course, than Allen Robinson, but they locked him into a 3-year deal. So immediately they needed help at receiver and they needed tackle help. They filled 2 of those biggest holes through free agency. They love to fill holes, open up the draft so that they can take players that they love and not have to force positions. We saw that this past year, and I believe that's still going to be kind of the case again this year. And later they went out and traded for Sammy Watkins, another receiver to help. He was only there for 1 season, but again, it was helping fill out a very big need for them. They knew they needed to overhaul the receiver room, and it feels like the Lions could do something sort of similar to that, not completely because they have a couple of pieces like St. Brown for sure, but they went out and traded for Sammy Watkins. Now, yes, they did go out in the draft and add weapons, Cooper Kupp and also Josh Reynolds, but they didn't have a first-round pick, so Cooper Kupp was a 3rd-round pick who's been outstanding, and Josh Reynolds, the 4th-round pick. He's been good for us this past year. Could be re-signed this offseason. We'll see. Because they do things like that, they open up the draft, they can just take players that they love. We've seen them draft positions that aren't necessarily necessarily their biggest need, but they love the guy, so they draft him, they plug holes, and then they re-sign their guys. We've talked about this. We've done full videos on this. So a signing like this with Allen Robinson could also help open up the Lions draft a little bit, take a little bit of the need to go get that outside receiver. That way you're not pushing for it. You know, that way it's not like, oh, if we don't get this guy, we're in big trouble because we don't have it. So it would take some pressure off. Plus, when you look at this draft, there is a lot of speed and size, but a lot of speed in this year's draft class. Small or big receivers, right? You can go with a Christian Watson type that's big and fast, or there's some small fast, Calvin Austin's, Wan'Dale Robinson. There's guys like that too, who apparently the Lions might be interested in, that the Lions could hit in the draft. So it opens that up as well if you get a guy like this. All right, so that's where I wanted to start with this. But now let's talk about Allen Robinson specifically. I believe immediately the thought that comes to mind with a lot of people, and you guys can let me know in the comments, I think a lot of people immediately hear Allen Robinson, they're like, oh, I don't want that. You know, stay away from Allen Robinson. He's coming off the injury. You know, they're just, for whatever reason, people immediately think that with Allen Robinson. The biggest concern here for me isn't even the injuries. It's the age. It's the fact that he's 28 years old. So you don't really want to sign a guy like that over 3 years, I got to believe, because there is still the age factor to it, especially when you talk about injuries. The fact is he is 28 years old. I would immediately say that something is for reasonable concern. You know, when you look at a Woods, when they signed him, didn't have much production, but he was only like 24, 25 years old. This guy's 28. However, he has proven production. So let's break this down into multiple categories. Let's talk about Allen Robinson, the second as a receiver. Let's go in the same order that we usually do, but as you guys can see, the grades are already on the screen. But let's go through it, okay? Let's start with the release first and work our way through the route tree. Starting with the release. Now, what you have to know about Allen Robinson is he is not one of these big and fast receivers. He's not extremely fast. That's not how he wins. He doesn't win with speed. He is more of, I guess if you put him in kind of a type of receiver, he's more of a possession receiver. Now, I know you hear that and you're like, oh, a possession receiver, that's not what I want, okay? You mean, I don't want a Danny Amendola. He's not Danny Amendola. But that's probably the category I'd throw him more into versus like a run after catch king or, you know, a guy that's super fast. I'd throw him more into that possession kind of tier. However, that's not a bad thing because he's really good at it. So let's start with release first, getting off the line of scrimmage. He's actually really good in this area. It actually surprised me how efficient he was off the release, off the line of scrimmage. And this goes honestly back to college at Penn State, same thing there as well. But really the only knocks that I have for him off the release is two things. One, sometimes there's a few reps in there where he's late off the line of scrimmage. Maybe he doesn't hear the snap. He's just a little bit late off the line of scrimmage, later than everybody else. It's not like a agility issue or anything like that or a speed issue. That's just sometimes he's late off the line of scrimmage. And also the biggest one being here is he doesn't have extremely good deep speed and he doesn't have great acceleration off the line of scrimmage. Not to say that he's not aggressive off the line. He just doesn't have those fear traits off the line of scrimmage like some other receivers have, where you really just have to immediately back up. However, he consistently wins off the release, and that's whether he's getting jammed at the line of scrimmage or having a clean release. Now, they play him in a lot of different ways. His role finds a lot of different positions, okay? You watch him, sometimes he's at the X receiver position, he's up on the line of scrimmage, he's got to beat man coverage. Sometimes he's in the Z position, sometimes he's in movement, sometimes he's making plays behind the line of scrimmage. He lined up all over the place, sometimes he's in the slot, and he was efficient at all three or all four or all different positions that you could put in pre-snap. He was good. Nice quick feet, and he had different ways to beat you off the release. It wasn't the same release package over and over and over and over, right? Now, some physical corners could kind of give him issue through some of his routes where they could stick with him a little bit because he doesn't have that, you know, scary deep speed or scary acceleration off the snap. But he could mix it up with different release packages. He has a pretty good frame where he can place through some contact. Sometimes you'll see him just give you a single jab to the left to work his way back inside and try to get to the inside leverage. I've seen him do a couple of like jump releases, some skip releases. I know this is weird, but watch him skip into this release, but then see the balance. He's going to sink and cut. Now this ties into route running. You see him hop, sink, cut, and then he's quickly out. You can see him for talking off the ball, do a double release where he'll fake one way, fake outside, and then come back inside. He'll do two instead of just one. Like a lot of times you see a guy jab one way and then go inside. He'll do two, he'll go bam, bam, and then get inside on you. And he sets you up very quickly. This release is actually magical, seriously. All right, here he is. He's going to get man coverage in the end zone, so there's not a lot of room here. All right, now you're going to see kind of this double release that I was talking about. Also, you're going to see him finish with a fantastic catch. Watch his feet. It's all about his balance. He keeps his feet forward, keeps balanced, which allows him to change direction with ease. He can also sink pretty well without having to give a tell. But another big thing to this as well is he keeps his hands very active. So if a guy tries to land a punch, he already has his hands up where he can immediately break off. We'll see that when we get to the route running side of things. So not a lot of room here. The linebacker is going to drop into coverage, which is going to kind of turn this into almost like double coverage, yet the ball is going to still go his direction, and he's going to make a really, really good play in traffic. So let's see this. Oh, wow, I have this thing on really slow. Okay, watch this. Bam, there's your first move. Set up the cornerback. than the second one. You see how much he sells? Head and also shoulders go that direction. The first move kind of gets him on his toes a little bit, kind of backs him up a little bit, or I should say on his heels, backs him up a little bit. Then the second move with his head and shoulders sells it, and then of course you got to finish it off. And that is just pretty all the way around. While the acceleration and speed is a little bit lacking here, the quickness, the efficiency, the ability to play through some contact off the release, especially on slants. This is an area where he can destroy teams. I mean, he's like, we talk about Michael Thomas, think about him as like the slant guy or whatever. This is the dude that could just win all game on slants. Really could. And in man coverage, it was Jacksonville. I mean, it was a no-go. Jacksonville couldn't match up with him. I saw Davis gave him some sort of problems in Tampa Bay, but Jacksonville had literally no answer for this guy. He could beat guys with slants over and over and over off the line of scrimmage. I think that's actually one of the better areas for him as a receiver. That moves you on the route running. Again, I think this is another good area, and these kind of tie together because some of the lack of acceleration, but for route running, mainly the top speed, does show up as an issue. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a lack of separation on top of routes. On vertical routes, there can be some lack of separation, specifically if there are no moves to it. If he's just running vertical, if he's just running a go route, there's not usually much separation there. And at that point, it just turns completely into a 50-50 ball. And I think you see a little bit less and less in the NFL that guys are just running by other players because there's not that huge gap between players. So guys like this are perfectly fine. This isn't college, right? There's not usually that huge gap in speed. If you see for him as a route runner, is that's the one thing that shows up. Sometimes there can be a little bit of lack of separation at top of routes because he doesn't have that breakaway speed. Sometimes he doesn't always have that great burst out of a cut. It ties right off the release, especially if he's running an underneath route. If it's a slant, something like that, quickly wins and he gets inside. Then you see it translate also in zone coverage, understands where the holes are in zone coverage. I feel like we say that a lot, but it's just the truth. All right, he finds holes in zone coverage and he can attack that, which makes him a very reliable zone target. One thing that stuck out to me, which I thought was huge here, right? The Lions were saying they want a guy that consistently wins one-on-one. I think about last year when we were trying to figure out who was that outside receiver once Quintez Cephas went down, really the gap between him and Josh Reynolds. The Lions were trying to figure out who could help on the outside, and they didn't have it. They didn't have an option, so our offense just was garbage. I mean, let's just say it was garbage on third down. We could not get in third down because there was no chance we were picking it up. So when you look at a guy like Allen Robinson, this is an area where he is literally outstanding against the competition. All right. In terms of percentage for the last 4 years, constantly over 50% of his receptions result in first downs. I mean, you're talking more receptions you're talking more first down receptions in his 2020 and 2019 seasons, not really counting last year because it was a short year. It's a situation that he was in, but he's constantly getting more first downs than guys like Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, who could be a huge free agent, Christian Kirk, Juju Smith-Schuster. He is a first down machine. And it really stuck out again in this Jacksonville game in 2020 because every time it felt like they needed a first down, you knew where the ball was going, yet you couldn't stop it. And what sticks out here is that he understands where the first down is. You'll see him sit on the first down line. He'll get across it, sit down, and he won't work his way in front of the first down line. So yeah, you got to give him a chance with the ball, but he understands where the first is. He's going to get to the first down marker. And if he's not there on the catch because his route is shorter, he will fight for that first down. You'll see him reach for the first down. Understands where the line to gain is, and that's huge. Just field awareness. We've seen so many times where our guys run a route 1 yard short, or they don't reach, and it's like, what are we doing? And then we punt. Doesn't happen. He's a first down machine. Route tree, it's pretty deep. There's a lot of depth to it. Now, we saw him do a lot of work from the slot position with Chicago. It's an easy target. He could sit down in zones, make himself a target, possession, sit down, pick up a couple yards, pick up a first down. But there's a pretty deep route tree. Slants, dig routes, in routes, can definitely run all of those. Then you also see he can line up on a boundary. He can run some out routes. You'll see some zig routes. He can pretty much run any route you could ask. It's just he's lacking some of that vertical separation at the top of his route tree. There was an interesting comparison that came to mind because I've looked at a lot of these receivers in the draft. It was David Bell. David Bell out of Purdue kind of came to mind. Not the exact same, but there's some similarities. David Bell lacks some of that top end speed. He gets separation deep. They have somewhat of a similar build, similar 40 times. Allen Robinson separates himself in terms of vertical jump. Those are combine numbers when they came out of college. That guy that came to mind a little bit was a David Bell type of receiver. Very big fan as a route runner. He's got this little nuance to his game. Okay, he knows where his route's going. The defender doesn't, so he can play off of leverage. He can give you a pretty nice variety of head fakes. It's just he's lacking some of that explosiveness in and out of cuts to always get separation. However, one thing that's huge, he draws a lot of pass interference. I think he sells it well too. Credit to him. He draws a lot of PI. And without having that great speed, it may shock you. I think it's just because of his quick twitchy movement with his feet, all right? He knows where he's going and bam, bam, bam. I mean, he gets a little bit of space and guys grab. See, corner routes in there. A lot of the corner routes drew PIs. It's something that stuck out. I think he's a really well-rounded route runner, and there's a reason that he's continuing to have the production that he does, because it's hard to, you really can't take him out of the game man-to-man. You just can't do it, especially in the short intermediate areas of the field. So I'm going to show a few of Allen Robinson's route running clips. Here he is against the Indianapolis Colts, bottom of the screen. He's going to do a slant here. He's going to have a free release, so there's no hesitation, no skip, nothing like that, just a free release. Now he stands up a little bit on this play, but notice how he does a pretty good job of staying low, and then he's able to transition into the slant. Notice his feet, he usually keeps them in, which helps him with balance. He doesn't get spread out wide. He also keeps his feet forward. Here he's able to keep his left foot forward, but immediately transition that right foot to drag into the slant. And you'll see the cornerback continues to slant, to drop back, yet he's already into his slant. Now, there's not crazy explosiveness there, or this is a slant, so he's going to be slowing down into this hole anyways, but notice how the cornerback is still moving back while he's already into his slant. He slows down in the hole here, just unfortunately it's a little late, so it's broken up. This is some of his cleanest work, and I think it's just because the balance and base that he keeps as a route runner, right? He continues to play low, but he keeps balance, keeps his feet forward. All right, so watch him on this play. You're going to see kind of this hesitation, skip, release he's going to go into here, but also watch the balance, how he doesn't get his feet out wide, and the hands. This is huge. I have another clip of this as well, how he attacks the defender's hands there. Having a plan with your hands, or that's the wrist, the break point, you know, on this time it's the back of his arm, so you're going to see that, how he uses that, but then also the little nuance at the end. Watch him look out this outside corner instead of just going into the route. Also very subtle, but the head and the shoulders. You're going to get a little bit of shake here from his upper half, which is going to really sell this. You see the little movement? That's going to get him over. Timing routes were huge for Allen Robinson. So here he is running like a deep in, a deep dig route, and you're going to get what looks like a cover 3 defensively. So the outside cornerback's immediately going to give him that inside. Now, what you notice here is that everything's about timing. So it's no wasted movement with Allen Robinson. He immediately realizes he's going to get the inside from how this cornerback is playing him. So no need to have some kind of extra movement here. He's just going to get upfield, run upfield, and what you see is he doesn't give a huge tail when he's cutting. He doesn't stand up super high. He's able to just slide into this dig route, give himself some space, and make himself an easy target, not do more than he has to. Same sort of thing here. I really love his balance, but also awareness of where the coverage is at and making himself a big target. So here he is. You can see as the motion comes, cornerbacks drop off. Now he's just going to run a really shallow like out route on this play, but what really sticks out to me here is his awareness of the space that he has, of course, making himself a target. So he's going to kind of slow down himself out of this cut. You're going to see him kind of slow himself down, put his hands out, and he's kind of just going to walk his way to the sideline to make sure that he stays in the quarterback's vision. Now, this is a play where I just like it because I think it shows off pure body control. All right, here he is from the slide. Now, this linebacker is going to run across his face, but just watch. This is how you know he's playing on his toes. How he's able to completely stop himself, watch the linebacker run by, and then sit down. Look at this. Whop. See how he just stops? Okay, that's elite body control. He doesn't run into him. He's able to control himself, sit down, make himself a target. You can just tell he's playing on his toes. I want to show off a little play like this because these are always dangerous. You know, when it gets physical like this, flags could be thrown, and usually they favor the offense, it seems. But on a play like this, now there's safety up over top. It does look like the cornerback has a little bit of room to kind of just play a little more outside leverage, but he's going to get physical here with Allen Robinson. He's going to play physical throughout this entire route. We've seen this in corner routes earlier, so this time he's going to get really physical on the outside of Robinson. But what I notice is how he's able to kind of give a little push off here, and they know he did, but he doesn't really extend his arm. You don't see his arm out there after the separation. So there's no flags called, and he just sits down, makes the grab, gets the first down. That just kind of gives me some of that vet nuance. Quick one, but understanding where the first down is. Sits down in the zone, gets to the line. That moves you on to receiving. Let's go to receiving next, then we'll hit rack. So receiving, this is the biggest part. You got to be able to catch the football. If you can't catch the ball, I mean, how can you play receiver for me? All the other stuff is great, but then you got to finish the play. He's a really, really good receiver. I wouldn't say he's the most reliable hands in the National Football League, but statistically speaking, he's got some of the most reliable hands in the National Football League. All right, you saw the stats. He had 7 drops back in 2019, only 3 in 2020, and he had over 100 receptions, which is nuts. And he was accounted for 2 last season. So take that how you want to, because you know what a drop is, what it all is. But from what I can tell you from watching the film, which is I think what matters the most, watching the film on him as a receiver, he's a very good pass catcher. All right, now he has an ability to kind of contort his body to where the ball is thrown, to kind of make really good adjustments with the ball in the air to set himself up and give himself himself a chance to make a play on the football. And again, with Chicago, he had to do that because there was a lot of passes that were not on time, a lot of them. So he's running to a hole in his zone and they throw it behind him, and he's got to try to, contort himself to make a grab. They'll throw it in tight coverage. They'll throw it extremely late. And all of a sudden he's got to make some weird adjustment to try to get his hands on the football. And you see some very difficult catches that probably shouldn't be. They're like 5 yards, but they become difficult, yet he comes up with the football. He has the ability to contort his body and get down to the ground. He can slide down. He can scoop passes off the ground. Good flexibility.
Now I have to show this because this is a great catch, and it probably shouldn't be this difficult of a catch, but at the same time, I mean, you touch, you catch it, and even passes that are a bounce, he tries to do that. But I just love the timing because timing is name of the game. See these 2 hops? He's just timing this up with the quarterback that way. As soon as he cuts, he's got it. Look at that scoop. Come on, man.
And then the jump ball side of things. He can catch a jump ball, and he's been a really nice target in the red zone. Now, for 2020, PFF said he had 0 drops in the red zone. Depends who you count as a red zone, but there were definitely, and this is why I don't give him a higher grade as receiver, 2 of my main knocks. My first one being there are occasions where he does not finish completely through the process. Okay, not saying that he's like, oh, he's not thinking and he's letting go of the football. Sometimes he just doesn't completely finish through. Now, this usually happens on jump balls. And I think a big reason for this is that he can sometimes let the ball get too close to his body. In a jump ball, you got to attack it. And while he has an incredible vertical 39 inches, very good body control when the ball is in the air to time things up, he sometimes doesn't completely get his arms completely extended. He'll kind of short arm a little bit, and he's catching with his hands, but the ball gets too close to him. It makes it tough for him to catch and tuck and keep it away from guys because he's getting his hands on it early. So at that point, he doesn't always finish through some of those plays. I'll tie that to really everywhere as a receiver. There's just some small occasions. I like him because he does a nice job of immediately catching and tucking. He protects the football immediately if he can. Now, if the ball's not in a good place, right? If I'm throwing a jump ball and he throws it at the defender's back, it's hard for me to grab it and tuck that thing. However, underneath intermediate routes, you'll see him immediately catch and tuck. Sometimes, however, he still does let it get too close to his body where defenders can get themselves into the play. But for the most part, he's got an ability to be running at full speed and change his body full speed, leave the ground, and make a grab somehow. Here's where I think he'll be scary for us. You remember how many times last year we ran the quick play action? Where we ran the quick play action, we'd have one receiver go deep. He'd run like a vertical route. He'd run a deep post over top. And then we'd have someone underneath on the opposite side in those condensed type formations where someone would drag across basically the middle of the field, right? St. Brown, Josh Reynolds did a lot of this work. And the Lions would try to get the fake, bite the linebackers up. It was an easy throw, and he'd go right over the linebacker's head. This is where I think he could be dominant for the Lions because he gives you size at 6'2", where he's going to be pretty easy to see. Also, he can adjust extremely well. So if the ball's a little late, he can adjust to the football. If it's a little bit behind him, he'll adjust to the football and he'll come up with really tough grabs. And that's an area where I think he'll be very dominant for the Lions. We've also seen him play the role of a runoff guy deep. And of course, if you're going deep, sometimes you have to pull the safety with you. It's not great speed though, but that's a route that I think he'll be dominant for the Lions. Quick slants, of course, but that quick play action game, he's going to be a problem on timing routes. Immediately came to my mind yesterday watching him, like, yeah, this is going to be a place where the Lions can have fun with him. And he's going to be dominant. He's going to be easy to see, because you get a guy that's running behind linebackers at 5'11", sometimes it's kind of tough to see behind linebackers. Like, wait, is he really open? Should I try this? Because then if I throw it too high, he may not be able to reach it. Here comes safety, pick it off. If I throw it low, the linebacker's going to get hands on it. So that size is very beneficial, and a great vertical and ability to contort his body is huge. Also, another very slight knock is sometimes it looks like he kind of short arms passes. There's also that too, where he doesn't completely get a full extension. But man, I gotta just tell you, you gotta see it to believe it. The guy can catch, absolutely can catch. He doesn't drop a lot of passes on. I really didn't see him drop passes on his own. Just sometimes he didn't come through with some of those very contested sketches, but then at the same time, sometimes he did, and they were incredible. In the red zone, he's a weapon, and I thought a lot of times he became a weapon just as a decoy because they'd send a second guy to him. Because if it's one-on-one, they like to throw fades to him. He'll make a lot of big grabs there. 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns the last 2 years. In 2019 and 2020. I wouldn't say he's a dominant red zone player, but he's definitely more than what we had this past year. Kind of just throw it near him, and you're going to have a chance, especially if it's one-on-one. And if they do leave you one-on-one, he's going to have a good chance of coming up with it. You just have to put the ball in a place where he has a chance to get it. You can't throw it super low. First too many times didn't really give him a chance in the red zone. They liked him there, but the chance they were giving him were just terrible. So I know the pass rating don't seem great when you throw it this direction. So many passes were not good. Sometimes they get him one-on-one sideline. It's a jump ball situation. You have to give him a good chance to come back to this ball, right? You have to give him a good chance to make this play. Either quick back shoulder, something. You can't just wait, roll out, and then throw it at the guy. It also led to some amazing catches, and he does have that body control, which is excellent as well. So he's a good receiver, a really good receiver. And he's someone that you can trust wholeheartedly on 3rd and 4th down. If you need it, probably looking at him. If he gets one-on-one, go to that guy because this is run after catch. First area that I didn't love of this game, I give it a 4 out of 10. Of course, there's ability here. And what you see is there is some elusive plays on his film where he's a little bit more slippery. I would call him a slippery kind of receiver where he can be a little flexible. He can get kind of low, can kind of dip down. You know, he can kind of shrug off a tackler, be a little flexible. And he does some bubble screen work, you know, some wide receiver screen work. Mainly when they throw wide receiver screens, he's the guy blocking. But he can do a little bit of work like that. Sometimes he'll make one guy miss. He's got like 5 broken tackles 3 straight years. But he's not scary with the ball in his hands whatsoever. Also, I think part of this is that, again, the role. When you're playing a lot of sit-down routes, a lot of things over the middle, first off, he doesn't have the knack. Plus, he's in a lot of situations where it's not catch and run situations. But however, what I don't love about his run after catch here is there's a lot of reps where I think he leaves sometimes a little bit of meat on the bone, you know, and for him, instead of trying to break tackles or juke or make guys miss, he just dives forward and kind of slides down forward into a hole, right? He'll just slide forward for the next couple yards. It's nice, but, you know, there could be more yards out there. He's just not great with the ball in his hands. He has okay speed, but it's nothing that's elite where it's like, oh gosh, watch out. And he's not that elusive. So a little bit of slipperiness, but aside from that, run after catch isn't fantastic, but he does usually protect the ball pretty well. Usually he tucks it very early, so there is that. But I think there's more opportunities out there depending on where you get him the football and if you get him in a situation where you can catch and run. Because I know he can catch and run if you put it on him. Moves you on to let's go to blocking. Yeah, blocking's got his lowest grade for me. Definitely can block. And this is coming out of Penn State, same knock as well. Biggest thing here is he's just not, there were certain run plays where they would just take him off the field. I mean, when Allen Robinson came off the field, from just watching, like, you know, some of the games last year, it was pretty clear, hey, it's a run. Allen Robinson comes off the field, defense should be saying run. And it was rarely a pass. Usually when they took him off the field, they were going to run. So there's that. Best work I think he does as a blocker is on wide receiver screens, because you'll see some solid reps there where he'll get connected. The biggest issue is he doesn't really move anybody. He can get connected. He just doesn't move defenders. He doesn't put them in it. He doesn't move them out of the way. He doesn't run over guys. He just kind of gets connected. So I don't think there's not necessarily lack of effort where he just won't try. He just doesn't move anybody. Blocking is definitely not a strong suit. However, he can block on screens. And that's the biggest thing to me, because what we saw last year was we throw a bubble screen with Hodge and Benson when those two were out there. Hodge misses a block, doesn't block anybody. And it's like, okay, you just blew up the screen. You got to be able to block. That's the area where I would say he would most need to be more beneficial for us to fit our team, you know, because you got to be able to block as a receiver, and you have to show that, you know, mentality. That moves you on to athlete. What is athlete? Well, how good of an athlete is he? Very flexible. He has an incredible vertical jump, which helps him a lot. 39 is vertical jump. You throw it up to him, he's going to have a chance to springboard and make that play. So it's not just all about speed here. It's about body control, flexibility, balance, strength. Pretty strong player. I wouldn't say like, you know, he's like a physical matchup for guys, but you know, he's got a pretty nice frame where he can usually play through some contact, but at very least he'll usually draw a PI because he can play through some contact. He's not a big guy, but he can play through a little bit of contact as well. Intermediate, short areas, he's his most dominant and efficient, but you definitely can throw it in the red zone because at that point there's usually not a lot of separation anyways. It's just, can you high point and make a play? And he can do that. He can bring that to the table more than anybody we've had aside from Hockenson. Now, here's what I liked about the Bears is he and Jimmy Graham opened each other up, all right? It was incredible, and they would even run routes to open each other up. Focus would have to be on one side, they go to the other. Jimmy Graham was their red zone guy, but Allen Robinson helped him a lot of times open things up. And that's what I feel like these two could do together with him and Hockenson is he can open the other one up and give you another option in that part of the field. If you can get creative and find a way to get St. Brown in the end zone, find a way to get Allen Robinson in the end zone. This is kind of a, you know, variety of injuries. You know, if he's going to be healthy, his play style, he played tough play style. He is coming off a hammy, which we've seen a lot in the NFL, but it's something to keep in mind. Relatively healthy for the most part, knock on wood. So I do like that side of it. You see him, he's kind of competitive, especially after the play, you know, for receiver or cornerback. I mean, if he makes a play on a cornerback, he might have something to say to him. You know, he's not really loud. He's not yelling at guys. Like, you don't feel that with him. He'll get in their face a little bit though. Or if they say something to him, you know, he's gonna get up in their face a little bit. So he seems a little more quieter. I don't know. I haven't heard him. I've never talked to him. Seems a little bit more on the quieter side, but there is some competitive spirit there. It just doesn't show up as much as a blocker. I would say that you just don't see as much as that competitive nature as a blocker. Always hyping up his teammates to be in that quarterback situation. He didn't really seem to sulk. I think another area that he is really good as a receiver is I know I say this a lot, but when plays break down. I think he actually does this at a very high level, finding holes when plays break down to try to make himself a target. Now, sometimes they still didn't see him, but he was really good at this. When something broke down, finding a way to make himself a weapon for the quarterback still and find a way to get his hands on the football. That's something that's huge as well, because that can happen. Plays will break down and you got to find a way to get open. He does that at a pretty high level as well. He's a reception guy, so he's going to try to find a way to get open. He's taking some big hits. I mean, being a possession guy and came up with the football. The biggest thing here, though, is, again, sometimes there's not always run after the catch like you would like. He makes it more possession than rack, but that's not always his fault. Sometimes it's just where the ball is and he can't really do much after the catch, and he's just more focused on catching the ball, which is first priority. I'd rather you catch it and fall than drop it and think you were going to run. You know, I'd rather do that. So Allen Robinson, he's a really well-rounded receiver. I mean, look, would I like this signing? I'm going to be straight up yes. I was really hesitant coming into this. I haven't loved a lot of free agent receivers, and one concern is, just as a whole, signing big receivers in free agency has not panned out statistically for the most part. All right, on average, it really is not panning out. So that's the concern, and that's the concern with every free agent receiver, especially for a guy that's 28 years old. However, I've seen what he can do, and I believe there's a fit here. The biggest thing to this is the Lions. I don't think they're going to be passing it a ton, so it is still spending some money, but you got to keep in mind the Lions have the cheapest receiver room in the National Football League. I understand they don't have tons of players under contract right now, but it's the cheapest receiver room in the National Football League right now at $3.5 million on the books for next year as of this very second. So Lions can spend some money, and if they want a guy that consistently win on the outside, he can do that. Very versatile where he can line up, can be a movement Z, can get on the line and beat you one-on-one as an X, can get in the slot and do some work. Experience from all spots, and he's been successful at all spots. What I think this opens you up is to getting more of a deep threat in the draft, more of a speedy take off the top kind of guy. It also can open you up to getting more of a gadget, catch it, make something happen after the ball is in your hands. He's not great at everything, but he is pretty darn well-rounded. Very reliable, will be very reliable on third downs. Only can open up the different variety of receivers that you can approach in this draft. But I also think that even a guy like Josh Reynolds, you can still resign him and also find a way to have both of them on the field. Like, he wouldn't directly just take his spot because he can play at pretty much any position that you want him to play. And because he can constantly win off the line of scrimmage, off the release, and beat man coverage, since he can play that X role, it's very beneficial because it's not always easy to find that. Do a lot of timing routes with golf, a lot of timing routes. He would be, I think, a killer there. He would make so many plays on those timing, play actions, quick out routes, anything that's on schedule. You would be in a really good hands with Allen Robinson because he's going to make a lot of plays. And when they needed it, a lot of times it was, where's Allen Robinson? Better quarterback play? Yes, I do believe golf would give them better quarterback play because it was honestly ugly. You know, whatever you want to say, the fact is it was ugly. Better timing, I think, will help this guy. And it'll play to his strength. It'll play to what he's good at. And it should probably bring the best out of him, I got to believe. There's always concern when signing big money. I would like to keep that number that's like looking at PFFs. I mean, I wouldn't give him more than 3 years, I don't think, because I don't want to, you know, you can throw a void year on there, but I don't want to know how deep I want to go into 32, 33 years old. But at the same time, I would like to keep that number under 40. I believe he'd help you a lot. He's kind of on his way out. He's trying to protect himself. If you're concerned about that, I get it, because it's like, well, you probably shouldn't do that. You know, you're tagged, which wasn't his choice. He was there. You got to play through that. So there is that side of it. But as a player, I really like watching a guy play football. We'll see, though. I think the Lions could maybe look a little younger here if they wanted to. But from free agent receivers I've seen, I like this guy more than a lot of them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm out.